Well, Andrew, Kelly, I can tell you what, there's a sense of shock and disbelief and just people wondering what really happened here. A lot of folks just came down here just to come to a rally for former President Donald Trump here in Butler Farm Show, but it just turned into complete chaos. We were on the media section of this venue and we heard those several pops, and we too, my cameraman Jax and myself, we both hit the ground. As soon as we got up, everyone, there was kind of a chaos and sheer panic. We did see a couple of folks being carried out. We did see former President Donald Trump immediately be shielded by Secret Service and taken out. He did give a fist up in support to his supporters before he was immediately taken out of the venue. And after that, everyone was just told to evacuate and exit. We've been speaking with folks all afternoon trying to gauge where they were when they heard these pops and how they were feeling during that entire time. A lot of folks saying they saw their lives flash before their eyes, and many just wanted to make sure their loved ones were okay. We actually spoke with two firefighters that came all the way from Steubenville, Ohio, who told us they got down and waited a couple minutes, and as soon as they kind of perked their heads back up, the next thing they thought of was jumping into action and helping in any way they could. And that was kind of the tale of what we kind of saw here today. A lot of folks just in shock of what's happening, and others trying to step in and help law enforcement and first responders in any way possible. We did see, again, two folks being carried out. Their conditions are unknown at this time. We actually spoke with the mayor of Slippery Rock, who was one of the guest speakers for this event, who was one of the people carrying that woman out of the venue. She, according to him, she seems to be okay, but of course that is unknown at the time. But he was just steps away from the former president at the podium, and he did happen to see some blood on the side of his face. I'm actually going to kind of show you what's left of the rally site overall. I'm going to step off to the side. Jax is going to show you at least what's left. This entire area right here was filled with cars and vendors ready to come out and for the rally. It was one of the larger rallies even I've been able to come and cover, just about the sheer number of supporters here for the former president. And just about that, it is cleared up. If you look further off into the distance, some of that, there's still traffic leading on the way out. Just to give you an idea of where we were, you see that American flag hang up on those two cranes. The stage was just below that, where former President Trump was speaking, and we were about maybe 100 yards, 100 feet away from that podium. And just so that's to give you an idea of how far we are now following that evacuation out into where we are standing as Secret Service and police are investigating that scene. You can see vendors just picking up what's left of their stands and trying to exit the area in a safe manner. Of course, traffic is going to keep people in this area for a long time. But again, when I'm speaking to folks, a lot of folks were just in shock this even happened and wondering what happened, if the former president was okay, if anyone else was hurt. When I did tell them the former president is expected to be okay, there was a lot of sighs of relief and just a lot of questions. Why is this happening? What's going on? Who would do this? And a lot of wave of support. Of course, you know, we are still waiting to hear the conditions of those other folks, but we do know that the former president is okay. You can see a stand here being basically picked up and cleaned up after what was expected to be almost a long afternoon for them, just trying to sell their merchandise, but then they have to pack up and head out the door. You can see some of that traffic off in the distance slowly moving its way out of the venue as thousands of people make their way out after standing in the heat upwards until 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. And we got here closer to 9 set up. The heat was coming down. A lot of folks, there were some issues with the fact that it was so hot and people were passing out and needing water. And then shortly after former President Trump took the podium, he spoke for a few minutes, and then we heard those several pops. And then after that, it was just a blur for a lot of people in the venue. So he immediately got down. Again, Secret Service immediately covered him. The rest of the crowd got down, and then they slowly ushered him out as quickly as possible and then told the rest of the venue to please evacuate. Of course, we actually were told to evacuate because the area and left most of our gear in the media center just while they're investigating at this time. But again, a lot of the mood that I'm hearing is shock, somber, and just a lot of questions. But again, like you all in the studio have confirmed, that former President Trump is expected to be okay, and I'm sure I'll have more as what we saw here today. But for now, reporting from Butler County, Carlos Flores, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.